Hi guys, I want to thank you very much. I reached 100,000 subscribers yesterday and I am ecstatic. This means I'm gonna get my silver play button from YouTube, so when that comes I'll show you what that's all about. And I figured that I want to celebrate, and I want to celebrate with you guys, so I'm going to put some coupon codes into the Etsy shop so you can get some of the patterns cheap. And already get started for maybe Halloween or Christmas, because I got some really cool patterns for Christmas, but some of them take a while to make. So especially the ornated drape, the ornaments, the drapes, the netted drapes. So I thought maybe I can share that with you and, you know, celebrate it that way. And so it took me 4 years and 10 months exactly to reach these 100,000 subscribers. So to reach all of you, and you know, that you would hit that button and say subscribe, because she's doing good stuff. And I realized in those, almost 5 years, I never actually talked about me. So I thought, well, I did tell how I got there and what I went through, and after 2.5 years you could update yourself on what happened, and after 5 years you could see how far I've gotten in my quest to financial independence. But I never really told you anything much about me. For instance, you don't know how old I am. Or maybe you do, but I don't think you do. Well, that's not important. We're not going to talk about age. You're as young as you feel yourself. So, but what I wanted to share is like 10 things that you probably didn't know about me. You probably know my name is Gianna, which is short for Giovanna, which is Italian. And if you translate it, it will go to Joanne or Joanna, actually. And so I'm half Italian. My dad was Italian and my mom is Dutch. No, I don't speak a word of Italian. And no, I didn't get raised by my dad. I do know who he is though, so he doesn't live anymore. But yes, I did. My mom raised me by herself, and he went back to Italy, and I went to Italy to meet my dad. And well, he passed away by now, so God bless his soul. But what you also probably don't know is I'm married to an Italian, which is exactly what my dad wanted for me. He wanted me to get an Italian. But when I was a young kid, I always wondered, like, because I had such a thing for America, that I always wondered if I would marry an American or if I would just marry an Italian. So what happened actually was I married an Italian, 100% Italian American guy. Can you believe it? 3, what you probably don't know, is that I met my husband on eBay. Yes, I was on eBay before I was on YouTube, and I was selling postcards, and Jeff bought a postcard from me, and he didn't want to send me cash money, so we've been having a talk about that for like 3 months, and he finally paid, and I finally sent him the card, and I was saving up to go to Miami, and he turned out that he lived in also in Florida, in Port Charlotte, which was on the other side of Miami. So I went to Miami, I stayed there a couple of days, and then I went to Port Charlotte because he said, well, if you're going to come on over here, come meet me. And what I did was I left my phone number with my best friend at home, and I said I would call her as soon as I would arrive over there in Port Charlotte, because you never know, you know, you might, I've been talking to him for like 3 to 6 months before I even left online, but still, you know, you never know what kind of idiot you run into. So, but that was cool. And in about 2 days it really clicked, and he asked me to marry him. And the whole point was that I was going to move to Port Charlotte, but then we got to talking about the pros and the cons, and you know, the weather there, the weather here, and all kinds of things. And then when we got to healthcare, it turned out that our healthcare system was a little better than it was in America at that time, which is 17 years ago. And I hope Trump will solve it, or Democrats and liberals will solve it together, or something will happen there that you get the same great healthcare system that we have. But so eventually, because my husband was already on medication, he decided to come over here. So I didn't get to go to America. What you don't know either is that I can actually sing the American anthem. I know the lyrics and I can actually sing it, just in case we ever go back and they say, well, if you want to be an American, you need to know the American anthem, which would be like you know, something I would ask if I was immigration board. I don't know if they do, but I would ask that. And then what you also probably don't know is I don't know the Dutch anthem. It is so difficult, and it's not half as beautiful as the American anthem. So, number 5 is what you probably don't know about me if you're not on Facebook. That is, on my personal Facebook page, I wrote a post where I actually had a dream that Hillary Clinton would concede to Trump. That I woke up and the newspaper said Hillary Clinton threw in the towel or something like that. And I wrote that on Facebook, and every day I woke up I was wondering if that already happened or if that was going to happen. And eventually, at the very last day, on election day, she did concede, but I didn't think it would take that long. I thought, after I saw her go flat into the car, where she was lifted into the car, where she just collapsed, I thought, okay, that's it. That's the day she's going to concede. The next day she's going to say, I can't do this. I'm physically not able to do this. But that didn't happen. It did happen. My dream did happen, and I called it, but it didn't. It took a very long time before that happened. So, and if you're on Facebook, you will also know this. I also called that Trump would win Florida. So, and I was totally convinced he would, and you couldn't even convince me that it wouldn't happen. So, those were two things that that I put on Facebook that I thought would happen, and actually they did happen. Number 6, I don't drink alcohol. I detest coffee. I think it's the worst smell in the world. I'm sorry for those who love it. And I don't do drugs. If I'm even on prescription drugs because the doctor put me on there, I will get off it as soon as possible. I remember when I had a surgery that they put one of those machines on my arm that I could push a button and I would get a couple of drops of painkillers in my blood, and it made me so sick I just pulled it out and I just went cold turkey on the pain. I think I got one of those painkillers that you put up your butt, and that was about it. Number 7, I can actually draw better than I can beat. Believe it or not, I'm really good at drawing portraits, and I love drawing portraits, but I haven't done it in such a long time, but I'm way better at it than I am at beating. Here's an example. Number 8. I still feel really bad about this. I went to the Dragon Con a couple of years ago, all by myself, and I was there to see Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell. And for some reason, even though Dean Stockwell's a very tiny guy, he's not very tall, I felt intimidated by him, but I really wanted to ask him something. I really wanted to ask him about Errol Flynn, because I'm also very big on Errol Flynn. And I had my bags packed. I was supposed to go to the airport, and I walked into the Dragon Con one more time with my bags, and I waited for Dean Stockwell to arrive. And when he arrived with his wife at the time, who was very young but very sweet. And he went outside, and she looked at me. She said, "He'll be right there. He's just gonna have a puff on his cigar." And I said, "I'll wait." And he went outside, and then he came back, and I was first in line, and there was nobody there at that point. But when he came back, then people started standing behind me for his autograph. And I went up to Dean Stockwell and I said, "Mr. Stockwell, I really wanted to ask you one question, because I'm such a big fan of Errol Flynn. I have always been, as long as I can remember, being a little child, I said I always loved Errol Flynn for some odd reason. I don't know why. I just loved him. And I watched almost all the movies they shown on TV, and I said, I really wanted to know, can you tell me a story about you and him?" And then he started talking about Errol Flynn, and Errol Flynn, of course, since long passed. But it turns out that Errol Flynn was a father figure to Dean Stockwell, and I actually, when he started talking about Errol Flynn, he really got emotional, and his wife really had to consolidate him, console him, and say it's okay, it's okay. And I just started to apologize, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. And he said, no, it's okay, it's nice to remember. I said, well, you know, sometimes when I go to California, I always go up to Forest Lawn, which is where Errol Flynn is buried. So is Humphrey Bogart, which, by the way, is my ultimate favorite movie star. And I always go to pay my respects to Errol Flynn too, and that made him bawl even more. And he said, "It's such a wonderful thing that you do that. I never had the chance to go there." So I'm still very sorry I did that, but okay. I hope, by the way, Mr. Stockwell as well. I haven't heard anything about him in a long, long time, and he doesn't do conventions anymore either, I think. So I hope he's okay. Okay, so 9 is number 9. Number 9 is Humphrey Bogart is my favorite actor. And I actually had the chance to stand in front of the grave of Humphrey Bogart. And you have to imagine this, me being like an 11, 12-year-old kid sitting in front of the TV, watching on the Belgium channel every Saturday the old movies, the Errol Flynn, the Gary Grant, that's what I grew up with, Jimmy Stewart, and of course Humphrey Bogart. And for some reason, Humphrey Bogart was just it. I loved Humphrey Bogart. And when I went, I was like 12, maybe 13 years old, and I went to my mom. I said, "Mom, is Humphrey Bogart still alive?" And she said, "No, he's long dead." And it just broke my heart. And it was so horrible to hear that, okay, these were black and white movies. I should have known, but later when I got older, I started buying books on Humphrey Bogart, and I started reading about his life, and I found out that he actually died 53 years old, and that's really, really young. So he should have been alive when I was 11. I mean, seriously. And but for the longest time, I had this thought: if I ever find out where he's buried, then I will go and visit there. And then when I got older and we got the internet, and you could actually, there's a website, it's called Find the Grave. I looked it up, and I looked for Bogart's pictures, cemeterial pictures, and I watched all the footage, and I figured, like, okay, I can find this spot. And it turns out it's behind a big golden gate behind walls, and you need a golden key to get in that area where Humphrey Bogart is buried. So when I got there the first time, I couldn't get in. And Forest Lawn is absolutely deserted, except for a couple of people that take care of the graveyard. But the thing is, you know, back in the old days, you could just slip, you know, one of these guys 100 and say, "Can you let me in?" But those days are completely over. I tried that. So the second time I went there, the first time I went there, I went there with my friend Marcy. And the second time I went there, I went alone. And I was texting Marcy while I was there. "Marcy, I'm at Forest Lawn now. I'm at Humphrey Bogart's now." And I was sitting on the bench in front of the Golden Gate, and I was just praying to God. I said, "God, please let me in. I don't know if I'll ever be here again." I was there for Men of a Certain Age. Ray Romano was supposed to be there. Scott Bakula was supposed to be there. And the dark guy, I just can't remember his name. I was watching that series, and they were doing something on stage that you could be at. So I had tickets for that. I flew to California, and when I'm in California, I will go to Forest Lawn. I will make time for that. So after seeing Scott making pictures, and beautiful pictures, by the way, and now I sound like Trump. I made beautiful pictures, by the way. Okay, well, I went to Forest Lawn, and I was sitting there. I was praying to God to please let me in. Let these gates be opened. I don't have a key. I know I can't bribe anybody to let me in. So please let this gate be opened for me, because I don't know if I'll ever be able to come back. And lo and behold, at that point, like maybe 5 minutes later, there was this car coming up, and there was this Chinese-looking lady. She was coming out of the car with 2 of her daughters, and there was this old lady, and they were carrying her, basically, well, not carrying her, but supporting her up to the area where the Golden Gate was, and I was sitting right in front of that, so these people were passing me by, and I thought, oh, I gotta react now, I gotta react now. I was just kind of like totally freaked and panicked that this actually was happening, you know. I mean, seriously, I was praying to God, please, 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 please let me in, and then suddenly there's coming somebody, when it's totally deserted, there's nobody there, and there's this one car there, and it stops right in front of this area, and she could go two ways. She could go left, which was an open area, or she could go right, which was the Golden Gate, and she turned right. And I asked that lady, like, please, 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 can you let me in? And she said, sure, come on in with me. And I went like, oh my God, this go that easy? And I walked right up to the area where Humphrey Bogart was buried, because I already saw the pictures. People have taken pictures of the burial site. So I pinpointed it. I worked it out with Google Earth, and I found it, and I could just walk right there. And now I gotta go to another story for a second. When the Scott Bakula fans come together, there's always one fan or two fans that, as soon as they try to talk to Scott, and they've never seen him before, and they anticipated that moment for like forever. They've been watching Quantum Leap, and they're finally standing face to face with Scott, and they want to say a word. They start breaking out in tears, and they just can't get out of their words. And I've seen this every time I went to a convention or wherever Scott was. I always saw this happen, that somebody would walk up to him and would try and start to speak a word with him and just burst out into tears. Which, by the way, if you are a Scott Bakula fan, is a good thing to do, because you will get hugged, because he cannot handle tears, and he will start hugging you and probably cry along with you. But I never understood that. I never could understand, because I never had that experience. When I saw Scott, I went like, oh, there's my best friend. You know, it's really, really odd. You've been following him since like you were 20, and then you're eye to eye to him, and he feels like he's your best friend. Of course he's not, but that's what it feels like. So, but I never understood that people could actually burst into tears because they started to speak to Scott. But now I'm standing in front of this grave of Humphrey Bogart, and I put my hand on the plaque, and I just bursted into tears. And it was like, at that moment, I understood perfectly what every Scott Bakula fan is going through that bursted into tears. Because it was such a momentum, it was such a build-up, it was such a moment that you never expected to happen, that when you actually get to that point where it actually happens, when you think it's so impossible that it will ever happen, then the emotion just gets the upper hand of you. You just break down in tears. And I was crying so loud that the daughter actually came to see me and asked me, like, what's going on? Why are you crying so long? I said, oh my God, I can't even begin to tell you why I'm crying so loud. It's like I lost my best friend yesterday, and I'm standing at his grave today. That's what it felt like. And I still get emotional when I talk about it. But, well, that was probably one of the things that you never knew about me. So that was number 9. And number 10 is, as a Christian, I used to be an atheist. I became a Christian because I bumped into a preacher, and he said to me, well, if you don't believe in God, why don't you just challenge him? So I put a challenge down for God, and lo and behold, he actually came through. So I'm trying to get baptized, and nobody or nothing is going to stop me from getting baptized. So those were the 10 things you probably didn't know about me. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, I hope in another, let me see, 4 years and 8 months that will be at 200,000 subscribers, and maybe I will tell 10 more things about me that you probably didn't know, and that will probably be things that will have happened in the last 5 years. Okay, well guys, underneath the video are the coupon codes for if you want to go on Etsy, and I hope to have a video up for you within about a week. So I'll see you guys next time, and I totally love you for subscribing to my channel. For like all 100,000 of you, I wish I could just hug you one by one. Okay, bye.